Hi everyone, it's Nicole from Mama Elephant with a Let's Go Caroling Christmas Scene card featuring the new October 2018 release Let's Go Caroling Stamps and Dies, plus the new Falala script creative cuts die, and then I've even used some previously released dies starting with this Galactic cover, which was part of the September release, and we're going to start with that as the background for our Let's Go Caroling scene. I have die cut this from some smooth white cardstock, plus I die cut some borders that are going to be these snowy borders here using the On the Hills dies. Using the light post as a guide, I am applying some mustard seed distress ink to my background scene first. I want it to look like the glow coming from the light post before I add the color to the rest of the background. And we're going to add that color with Mermaid Lagoon and chipped sapphire distress inks. If you have seen some of my Christmas cards, especially my Christmas scene cards for 2018, this has kind of been my go-to color combination for whatever reason. I have really been loving this. I think it creates a really beautiful night sky, and with the addition of the mustard seed for that glow from the light post, I think that's really super duper fun. When I'm inking traditional smooth white cardstock, this is Neenah heavyweight cardstock, and I'm not using a specialty watercolor cardstock or a Bristol smooth cardstock. I like to kind of go in with a light hand and gently build and add the color. And what I mean by that is if you go in with a heavy hand, a lot of times you're not going to get a beautiful seamless blend. And that's because traditional cardstock doesn't tend to like to play nice with distress ink unless you start with a light hand. And then the more saturated the paper gets with ink, the better it's going to blend out. And I start with a nice light layer of Mermaid Lagoon, but I'm definitely going to build that up. It's not going to be as light as you see. I'm also not going to ink all the way down to the bottom of the panel. That's going to be covered with those On the Hills snowy borders anyway, so there's no sense in adding the ink down there. I just want to blend my ink down towards the bottom of this panel, and you can tell as the paper gets more saturated, I am going in with a little bit heavier hand, blending those blues into that light coming, or the mustard seed, which is the light in this case, and just building the intensity of that color so my night sky is a little bit darker. I like it darker rather than lighter. That's just my personal preference. Now, once I get my ink all blended, I will be stamping and embossing a sentiment from the Let's Go Caroling stamp set on this, but because I'm going to emboss it, I like to let that sit for a little bit and make sure the distress ink is dry all the way. It does tend to stay wet for a little bit, so I generally won't go in and emboss right away. If you do want to go and emboss right away, I would suggest hitting the background with your heat tool first. I'm also going to be pretty conscious of where I stamp, and that's because I tried to avoid any of those little die cut holes as best as possible. I believe there's going to be one near the H in Christmas that just didn't really avoid the hole very well. There was not a great way to avoid everything. I tried really hard to avoid that just so that the sentiment is easy to read. But let's go ahead and set that aside, and we'll come back to that after we have stamped and colored and die cut the images from the Let's Go Caroling stamp set. Now, I am using just about every image from this stamp set. I think, in fact, let me take a peek here at my stamp set. The only things I'm not using is maybe the little elf hat, and I didn't use the music notes. And I have to tell you, I completely planned on using the music notes. I just forgot until I had already added some Nouveau crystal drops to the background, the little die cut holes in the background, and I decided to just forget it because I didn't want the embossing powder to stick to the Nouveau crystal drops. However, you could wait till that's completely dry, or you could do it ahead of time, which would have been my preferred plan when you emboss the sentiment from the Let's Go Caroling stamp set. So if you want to add music notes, I think that would be really fun, or you could even add them with black ink or something else. I just really thought they'd look better in white to complement the sentiment. And I may even go back later and add those in if I remember, because I think they're a really great addition for a caroling type of card. I'm coloring my images in with Copic markers today. I did stamp my images with some Hero Arts Intense Black ink. This is a great ink for Copic coloring. There's several different ones I like to use. This is one of my favorites. And then I'm just coloring everything in. And I have listed the colors I'm using somewhere on the screen most of the way through this video. There is some repetition in color, so I may not be adding all the colors every time you see me color. But if you see that I have used that color combination before, you can be assured that it's the same colors. I did not go pull out additional colors after I kind of got my main set of red, my main set of green, blue, aqua, pink, yellow. I just went back to those for all the little areas. And we've got a cute little bear, the bunny, and then the cat. So, so cute. Now, I do want to tell you that you're going to see the cat colored, and I started with way, way, way too dark of colors. I did not like it at all. So the original cat image I actually scrapped, and I'll come back to that closer to the end of the video and color it in with a different color combination that I like so much more. I kind of went back and forth on what I wanted to color the bench, and my initial thought was browns, kind of like a brown bench. And I thought, you know, I think a pop of red would really be great for a Christmas card, and I'm super glad I went with red. Other than the ribbon and the bow around the light pole, and then some touches of red in the outfits on the little critters, there's not a lot of red in this card, believe it or not. So I think pulling that red in looks really great. Number one, against the blue background, and number two, it's really festive and works with a Christmas themed card, of course. I did start coloring, kind of going around like the little nails or screws that look like they're holding the bench to the support. And then I thought that's kind of silly. I'll just go over that with a jelly roll pen later and cover that up and add some little white dots to that are going to finish off the bench beautifully. The light pole, funny as it seems to say, is kind of the star of the show for me in this card. I'm a huge fan of light poles from different manufacturers and companies. In fact, if you would go back and look through Christmas cards I've created, there are lots of them throughout that I love the little light poles. I just think for whatever reason, they're just a really lovely festive touch. And I think this one is so beautiful. I think there's lots of fun things you can do with this. It wouldn't have to just be used with this set. I also want to mention, and let me see if I have that out here still. I might not. There was a set of stamps from 2017 released from Mama Elephant that are by the Luli Bunny, and they're the same kind of illustration, I guess is what I want to say. So if you are looking for even more critters, maybe not for a portrait style card, because this does pretty much fill a portrait, but think about tipping your scene to a landscape style card. You could fit even more cute little critters. The other set from 2017 comes with a gingerbread house. In fact, you guys, I will link to that here at the end of the video. So if you're looking for some similar little critters, and there are even some that are not in the holiday collection, which would be super fun as well. I think maybe you could even mix and match there. But if you're looking for holiday themed ones and you want even more options, maybe you want to add in a gingerbread house in the background or whatever that might be, that is a really fun option as well. I love adding upon what you might already have in your collection, in your stash, and for even more card options with these new stamp sets. Anytime we can extend the life of the stamps that we already have and pull in something new and just build upon that, I think that's a great thing. I'm a big fan of mixing old and new together. I had kind of planned, before I ended up going with the portrait style here for my card, of maybe trying to pull those in. I had even pulled it out originally, and then I just decided that I felt like it was a little too much for this orientation of card. But I think it would be really fun in the future to try to do a card like that, or even do a card that maybe has the front and the inside decorated. Maybe you use some of the inside pop elements from Mama Elephant, the little inside arch, to finish the scene on the inside of your card. You could definitely continue the scene with very similar looking images. So if you're looking for something like that, that is an option. So here I have die cut everything that I colored the way I wanted it to. As I mentioned, I did not like the cat. I started with way too dark colors for the stripes, which is a big bummer, and too light for the base. So we will color that in a different color combination here in a second. Let's go ahead and build our background scene as is though. Let's go ahead and add our light post. Let's add our bench. This is giving different levels and adding interest and filling that upper area. This is a bottom heavy scene card design. So anything you can do for different levels. What I mean by that is we've got our snowy borders along the bottom and our carolers. Our light post sticks up nice and tall, so that's extending up into the upper part of the card. And then we've got our bench, which is another level. So we've kind of got 3 levels here. And then of course our sentiments are going to fill in the rest of the top of the card so that it gives it a really nice balance. I always try to find a really fantastic balance with my scene cards, and this is one way to do it without overfilling everything going on. So my background is dry. I am going to stamp my sentiment from the Let's Go Caroling stamp set with a clear embossing ink, sprinkle on my white embossing powder, and then we're going to heat set that. And I want to make sure it's completely covered, that there's no stray flakes anywhere on the background before I heat set that. And I like to make sure my heat tool is good and hot before as well. Now, if you were not going to fill in the little die cut holes in the Galactic cover background, I would suggest putting a little liquid glue behind that. But because I'm going to cover them all with Nuvo crystal drops, I decided to go ahead and put adhesive all over the front of a top fold card base and then go ahead and adhere my cover, my background scene directly to that. For a little bit of added dimension, I am going to pop up my carolers with foam adhesive using the Scrapbook Adhesives foam adhesive squares. The light post, bench, bird, and mouse are all adhered directly to the background. There's no dimension there, but my carolers are all going to be popped up, and that just simply helps give a little tiny bit more dimension to the card while not adding so much that it's hard to put in the mail. For the light in the candle in the light post, for the stars on the bow wrapped around the light post, the star on the little bunny's hat, and then all of the open little die cut holes in the background, I am adding Nuvo crystal drops in White Blizzard. This is a glittery clear material. I have die cut Falala from some white glitter cardstock that's been adhered to fun foam with stick it adhesive. In fact, I use this on another card as well. I like to keep my little scraps like this and use as many of them as possible, or use as much of that product as possible. So I was able to actually get 3 different die cut greetings from this, and I probably could even die cut some other elements. I keep these scraps because I find them really useful whenever I need to die cut something that I want to be dimensional and glittery. I'm going to pop my Falala, I guess, right above there. The stick it adhesive makes this super sticky. And we're going to pop that in place right above the stamped and embossed greeting. And then let's go back and finish the cat. I am using some colors that I often use when coloring skin tone on people images, but I kind of like how they give that illusion of an orange tabby here, and it isn't quite as in-your-face stripes, so it's a little more muted. And then of course just using other color combinations that I have already used throughout, my blues, some greens, the reds. So cute. I also want to mention in the finished images, so the mouse and bird and then my cute little carolers, I used the black jelly roll pen for the eyes on the mouse and the bird, and then for the noses on the carolers, which are really going to make them nice and prominent and stand out. I'm going to take a white opaque pen and I added some little dots to the cheeks on the carolers, but other than that I did not go and add highlights. I added some little highlights to the berries on the little holly and berries on the bear's top hat. I added some little accents to the pom-pom on the stocking cap and some little dots to the argyle pattern, but other than that, nothing. I am going to use that white pen though to add detail to those little nails or screws in the bench that we were talking about earlier when I was coloring that in, to really define those images and finish it off. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this Christmas themed Christmas Carolers card featuring the brand new Mama Elephant Let's Go Caroling stamps and dies. The supplies I used to create my card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Mama Elephant stamps and dies that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to see you next time.